welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. I hope this session both teaches you a little bit about what it means to raise a reader and how children become readers, and also motivates you to invest time in teaching your children reading and writing activities. My name is Maggie Morgan. I'm a reading specialist with Racine Unified School District, and I'm really passionate about reading. So thank you for automatically devoting your time right away. So this session is part of an initiative that we're doing with the district. It's called Raising Readers. And a lot of my session today is just going to be pointing you towards future resources that we're going to have for you as well. So it's not just a one-time thing. This session will be followed by more videos and resources for you as well. And there's already some resources on the site. So let me show you where that is. You don't have to go here now, but in the future, if you go to the Racine Unified School District webpage and click on Families, you'll come to a page that looks like this, and you'll see that Raising Readers has its own little section already. And once you click in there, you'll see a bunch of resources for you. I'll try to point out which resources are already there and the ones that are coming up in the future. So why is the district investing in early literacy? Well, most people think that you learn to read when you get to school, and children start school at either K4 or K5, right? Kindergarten. But in fact, before they get to school, each child has begun their literacy journey already. And that is because the greatest amount of brain growth happens between birth and age 5. So it's kind of crazy that we invest all this time in kindergarten, right? Trying to teach children to read, but really a lot of this brain growth and learning is happening before they even get to us, which means, unfortunately, that a lot of the early learning that goes into reading and writing is on parents' schedules and laps. So it's really important for us to work with families to teach you about reading and motivate you to do some reading work with your children. And so looking back at this classroom as teachers, when children come to us, they're on that literacy journey, and some are further along than others. And so we want to make sure that we have students that are well on their way to learning to read and write when they show up in K4 or 5-year-old kindergarten. Because it's important, because some children find learning to read difficult, and we'll talk about why in a bit. And some of it could be, neurological or a learning disability, but some just struggle because they just haven't gotten enough experience with literacy yet. And this is an issue, especially with early grades. If we don't catch them up when they get older, and things shift from learning to read to reading to learn at around 3rd grade, a lot of their learning happens through reading. And if they can't read yet, they're going to miss out on a lot. And so this is called the Matthew effect in education. You know that old proverb, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Well, poor readers tend to go in this downward spiral. They don't enjoy reading because it's hard, so they don't read, and then they don't build automaticity with words, and that automaticity makes them not want to read as well, and then they don't learn words and they don't like school. And so dropout is very common with children with severe academic difficulties. So we're trying to prevent this downward spiral. By investing in early literacy, we can do that opposite spiral, the upward spiral, where if we set the stage for enjoyment of reading, children will get a lot of practice with reading, develop that automaticity, and see reading as rewarding and have success at school. So that's really the why. So for the rest of the session, here's my plan. We're going to go through building your own knowledge on reading and writing, all the little skills that are involved, because that's going to help you become a better teacher for your children. Then we'll go into tips on how to raise a reader, things you can do at home. And I hope you'll see that it's not too hard, the stuff I have for you to try. And then finally, if you have questions, you can type them into the chat right away, but I'm not going to be interacting with that. I'm just going to talk through for the first half hour or so, and then we'll get to questions and answers at the end. But if you want to type them now while you're thinking about them, that's fine too. Felicia's going to help me track those questions. All right, so let's start with building your knowledge on how children develop as readers. So I kind of already hinted at the answer to this question, that we know it doesn't happen, they don't learn to read at school. They actually start learning to read at birth. And maybe even there's some studies that show they can actually hear in utero as well. And that is because language is a huge piece of literacy. This quote is my favorite quote about this. Reading and writing float on a sea of talk. So making sure that we talk with our children and surround them with lots of words and sentences is going to set a really good foundation for reading and writing later in their learning. So the good news for you parents is that babies' brains are wired for sound. So you don't need to explicitly teach your child how to say words. They pick it up just by listening to you. But that does mean the more you talk to them, the more words you use with them, and the longer sentences you use with them is going to build a more robust sea of talk for them to use, a more robust foundation. But you don't really, luckily, most babies are born wired for this sound and will pick it up naturally. And then around the age of 1, they start talking themselves. And we do have milestones already posted here for language. If you have some young ones and are wondering, are they on track with their language skills, you can go to our Raising Readers Hub and look at those language milestones. And that talk is going to help them when they write, because what is writing but sending your message out there, just like we do with talk. So hopefully you can see how surrounding your child with language will help them become a reader. But here's the rub. Reading and writing also involve print, and we are not wired for print. So we are wired for sound, but print is not. And so this is where reading and writing can sometimes start to be kind of difficult for some students. What we're trying to do when we start using print with our children is we're trying to show them that this talk and this language that surrounds them can be represented by letters, because that's really all reading is. It's talking through these symbols. We're coding our language with these letters. And also when we write, we code and then we listen, we interpret it through our language as well. So we just need to sort of show the kids how our language is represented by these symbols. Sounds easy. It's a little bit harder than that though, because letters are tricky. Knowing a letter involves a lot more than we think. And because we're proficient readers, we sometimes forget how hard it is for students to learn letters. They need to know the shapes of the letters, the visual forms of them. They need to attach a name to each letter, uppercase and lowercase. They need to attach sounds to these letters, and they also need to learn how to make the letters, right? So that's a lot of knowledge already. And then there's something called ABC order that we use in our daily lives, right? So we need to figure out how these letters relate to each other as well. And I'm going to show you why it can be a little hard. Look at these Hebrew letters, okay? What if I told you you had to learn the names, the sounds, how to form, and how to even distinguish between them all, and figure out how they fit in order, right? So if you think about the task that we're asking children to do to learn letters, it's quite a big task. And this is where a lot of students struggle sometimes with letters. And there's even more that's difficult. A lot of our letters look alike. And, in the world, we can spin things around and it doesn't change what it is, right? This is my hand, this is my hand, this is my hand. But with letters, you can't switch them around or they become a whole unique, different thing. We'll talk about letter learning in a future post in the Raising Readers section, but just know that this letter learning can take a little bit of time, but really thinking about how your children are doing with picking up. Do they know their letter names? Do they know their letter sounds? Can they form the letters as well? Something to look out for. The other thing that you want to look out for is called, this is like a sciencey term, phonological awareness. And this is the ability to hear, identify, and manipulate parts of language. When we talk to children, we're talking in words, but when we read and write, we have to pay attention to the sounds in language, because our language is, those sounds are represented by letters, and we have to either pick up those sounds from the letters or take the sounds and write them in letters for writing. So having children listen inside of words is phonological awareness. So skills such as knowing that these long sentences are made up of individual words is phonological awareness. Understanding how long words can be clapped into syllables. Some words are one syllable, some words are two, and some have multi syllables. The understanding of rhyme is part of this as well, and we'll talk a little bit about building that later. The awareness of listening for beginning sounds is our first step towards what we call phonemic awareness, which is the ability to hear the individual sounds in words. Every word in the English language is made up of individual sounds called phonemes, and to be able to read and write is to be able to distinguish between these phonemes. For example, the word ship has 4 letters, right? But only 3 phonemes. If we were to tap it out, it'd be sh, I, p. And so to spell ship, your child would need, when they're ready, to be able to hear those sounds and know which letters spell those sounds out. Also, to read, they would need to be able to take those sounds, sh, ip, and blend them together to decode that word. Next month's post in Raising Readers is going to be on phonological awareness. So look for that video as well. So we have built a sea of talk with our children. We're introducing letters, and we're teaching them how to listen within words for these individual sounds. Now they're ready to use that letter knowledge and that phonological awareness, that awareness of sounds inside of words, to decode or sound out words. So for example, here's how that works. In this case, the child would go a, p, and that is using their letter knowledge, letters and sound knowledge. And then to blend that together into the word map is their phonological knowledge, putting those sounds together. And then they would say map. Now, if they know what a map is, it's way easier to sound out. I was actually working with a child yesterday, and he was trying to sound out the word sob. And he said, sob. And then he was like, I don't know what word that is. And he couldn't blend it together because he doesn't know the word sob. He didn't understand that that means to cry. So also all that sea of talk, having a lot of vocabulary words is going to help your child even in decoding as well. So here's the rub, but luckily parents, you don't need to worry about this too much. We have 26 letters in our alphabet. It would be really nice if we only had 26 sounds, because then we would only have 1 sound per letter. But unfortunately in English, we have 44 sounds about, depending on dialect. So there's a big chore here that we have to reuse some of our letters to represent multiple sounds, and it gets a little crazy. And this is another place where children struggle, is that it's not a clear one-to-one correlation. That's why C can sometimes say k and sometimes say s, or that we don't have one letter that says sh. We have to use 2 letters, sh, to represent that sound. And guess what? There's other letter combinations that make the sh sound as well. So I always use this GIF with my kids when I'm working with them, and it's hard that it's a struggle in English. Other languages have a lot clearer connection between letters and sounds. We do not, but that doesn't mean that it's not important to teach these phonics patterns. But parents, you don't have to worry about those phonics patterns as much, because by this point, when they're learning these more sophisticated letter patterns, they're usually in school. So if you just work on that letter knowledge and that phonological awareness, we can take it from there. But wait, you would think we were done with learning to read. There's a few more skills we need to talk about. One of them is kind of fun. It's called concepts of print. And that is, do they know how to handle a book? Do they know where the cover is? Do they know how to open a book and turn the pages? There are some children who have never experienced a book and they won't know what to do with it. Also, directionality. We have these kind of arbitrary rules of that we start at the top and we go left to right when we read, right? And then when we get done with that line, we go all the way back to the beginning. That is something children have to learn to do. It's not natural. In Hebrew, they actually read the opposite way. And they have to learn stuff about punctuation as well. So there's new symbols here. What do I do with these? Concepts of print are often taught through modeling with your child. So babies will pick up on book handling skills just by watching you read with them. And babies sometimes have their own concepts of print, right? So before they really have seen it modeled enough, they might be using books in a different way. But as they get older and have had more experience with books through your modeling, they'll start being able to page through books. And this last picture is near and dear to my heart. This is my own daughter when she was a baby, thumbing through a book when she was pretty young. She's now 14. Another reading skill to pay attention to is comprehension. It's not enough just to decode the words. You have to do something with it. You have to synthesize the words that are coming to you to understand them. And that's what comprehension is, understanding what you're reading. And comprehension depends on having background knowledge. So if they're reading about the jungle, do they know what vines are? Do they know what ferns are and jaguars, right? If they don't, it's all going to kind of be gibberish to them. Also, vocabulary words, right? Do they know what a vine is? They might not understand what it means to swing on a vine then. So making sure our children have deep background knowledge and vocabulary is also important. And finally, we're almost done with reading, I promise. Fluency is also very important. Fluency is a smoothness of reading, and it's kind of our goal as teachers to turn our readers into fluent readers. And that means their reading sounds smooth, there's a good rise and fall to their reading, and expression. So they sound like they're talking. It basically means the opposite of robot reading, and we'll talk to students about that as well. To be fluent, students need to have high accuracy in their decoding, and they need to be automatic in it. You can't read smoothly if you're sounding out all the words, right? And the other piece of fluency, though, is comprehension. How do you know when to rise and fall your voice and when to pause at a period if you don't understand what's going on? So fluency incorporates kind of everything rolled into one. And that's why it's a good end goal for us teachers. So we finished reading. I hope that wasn't too much for you, but I want to quickly touch on writing because it's really interesting how writing uses a lot of those same skills. Writing is actually kind of just the opposite of reading. They're still language, right? In reading, we're taking these symbols that we call letters and translating them into words and creating comprehension, right? Getting the author's message. With writing, the author starts with the message and goes the other way. They start with the message and they think, how could I say that in a sentence? And then they have to start using that phonological awareness to listen for the words in the sentence. And if they don't know how to spell the word, they have to actually go inside the word and listen for the sounds in that word to spell. They then link those sounds in the word to the symbols that represent those sounds, and then have to use their letter formation to write. So there's a lot of pieces in writing, and we always tell teachers to look at a student's writing because it's kind of proof of what they know about the reading process as well. Also with writing, you need to have fine motor skills to hold that pencil, and you need to have that left to right directionality. We see kids sometimes have interesting ways of writing when they come to us, and they have to understand punctuation. Now, when your kids are very little, we don't expect punctuation. So as parents, you can probably point out a few punctuations, but you can leave some of that to the teachers as well. I wanted to show you a little bit of a glimpse. Remember when I talked about how children come to us and they're at different stages in their journey? I was in a class with kindergartners, and I wanted to get an idea of where these kindergartners are with their writing. So I had the teachers share a sample from a few kids. And so as you can see, writing develops first as scribbles, right? Maybe this child doesn't have the fine motor skills or letter knowledge to actually write yet. So they're just kind of getting those fine motor skills going. This is another student in the same class at the same time, and you'll see that they're a little further along in their writing journey. She's writing about going to McDonald's with her mom to get some ice cream, and you'll see here that she has some letter-like forms. So this student understands that writing is print and has some fine motor skills to sort of approximate letters, but they don't have enough letter knowledge yet to write yet. Same class, same time of year. This is another child writing about his teacher. And we're seeing letters pop into this student's writing, but these letters are not connected to the sounds yet. So this is not what they were trying to write. I think it's actually just letters from the carpet, right? But at least we're seeing letters pop into this child's writing. And this is the last student I'm going to show you from the classroom. This student knows their name almost, although down here I think they wrote it correctly. And then the message was, I like to go outside and play. And you see how the student is starting to use that phonological knowledge to write I, L, I, K. So in kindergarten, that's a great way to spell like. They don't know the silent E pattern yet. They haven't been taught it. So this is something we would like to see kindergartners do. This is great kindergarten work, linking that letter knowledge to phonological awareness. And then as soon as we teach silent E, we can expect the child to use it in their writing. This is not a sample from that classroom. I just want to show you that eventually they get better at representing sounds and words, and it starts looking more like regular writing, using the letters and the phonological to get like this is, I have a big dog at home, and they're starting to get all the sounds in the words represented by a letter. All right, so I just threw a ton of information at you, and we're going to move into tips next. But before we do that, I want you to take a second to just kind of breathe and think about where your child, or if you have more than one child, where they are in their literacy journey. Okay, are they real young and just ready for you to surround them with talk? Are they talking themselves? Is it time to sort of push them in expanding their sentences a little bit? Are they ready for letters? All the things that go into letters, names, sounds, shapes. Can they listen inside a word? Can they tell you the beginning sound at least? How are they with rhyme? If you handed your child a book, what would they do with it? Would they know how to hold it? How to turn pages? Would they know which way the print goes? Now, this is more school-based stuff, but maybe you have a first or second grader. Are they sounding out words? For all readers, maybe not the babies, but all preschool age readers and above, are they able to understand what you're reading with them? Are you having discussions on what's happening in the books you're reading? And finally, what does their writing look like? Take a good look at that. We'll talk about pencil grip in a little bit, and you can take a look at how they're doing with their pencil grip as well. All right, so I got through the first part. Let me check the time. Oh boy, I'm taking a little more time than I thought. I apologize. How to raise a reader is next. I've really bundled my tips down for you into 5 main categories. To raise a reader at home, I would say you need to do reading with your children. You need to talk with your children, sing with your children, play with your children, and write with your children. So I hope you see as we go on that it's not too difficult. So let's start with reading. Reading is your #1 bang for your buck. Reading with your children is going to do a lot for them because, oh, and this was a post that we already have up on Raising Readers. We have a video about this. It's going to build their language skills. It's going to build their background knowledge. You can read them books about all different topics to build that background knowledge. And vocabulary. Books contain a lot more sophisticated words than speech does, so books teach vocabulary. Obviously, you'll model those book handling skills. And as they get older, as you read, they're going to start picking up on some letters and words. And through discussions with them, you can build their language and their comprehension as well. But the #1 thing about reading with your children at home is to really show them that reading is enjoyable. It's a gift that keeps on giving. So I just love these pictures. And that enjoyment is going to mean motivation as well for your children, right? When things get tough, when print gets introduced, at least that love of books is going to carry them through a little bit. So my 3 rules are read whatever you can, read whenever you can, and by whoever you can. So if you're not there because we're working parents, maybe check to see if your childcare has books available and how often they read with your children. And if you don't have books at home, we have a resource in our Raising Readers Hub for where to find some free books. Our youngest readers, I'm going to blow through a little bit. You're really just building language and love of reading and those concepts of print. So you're not dealing a lot with comprehension. The books usually aren't that sophisticated anyway, right? But really with those youngest readers, we're trying to build a habit with you in investing the time in doing the reading as well. So it's a good habit for you to get into when they're young. For preschool readers, book handling skills are being modeled, but these books are usually more sophisticated, have vocabulary and background knowledge for them. They can start noticing the letters that they know, and you can have discussions with them about comprehension as well, because there's a little bit more happening in these books. If your children are already reading, it's still important to set that time aside, either for you to read with them or they need to be reading by themselves as well, because the more they read, the more automatic they are with that word recognition. And then they build a better sight vocabulary, which helps with fluency. And then they're faster readers, so they can pick up on more words. Okay, so that's that whole rich get richer, right? So the better reader they are, the more they're going to pick up on vocabulary that we then don't have to teach them. And the more comprehension and background knowledge they're going to get too. So they almost become kind of self-feeding machines as well. Slight caution with timing. Don't punish your children with reading or really yell at them for not reading, because we don't want them to see reading as a chore. It's best to really just try to find books that they love and want to read instead of punishing them for not reading. When my son was transitioning out of easy books into chapter books, all he wanted to read was Captain Underpants. Not my favorite type of book, but it got him through that hump. And so I just got them for them from the library for him to read. Okay, so read, read, read. That's your first tip. Second tip is talk. Again, that's that C of foundation for reading and writing. It's going to build that language. It's going to elongate their sentences so that their sentences can match book length sentences. And talking with them as you go about your day can build background knowledge and vocabulary. When they're little, you're basically just trying to surround them with sound as much as possible. And as they begin talking, remember to check out those milestones as well. I hope you can hear this. This is a cute, you don't have to wait till they're talking to have a conversation with your baby. I'm going to play this. I hope you can hear it. I'm going to turn the volume up.
Did you understand it though? No. No. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh no, not this one. This is the grand finale of it. Okay, yeah, that's the last one. That's what I was wondering. I don't know what they're gonna do next season because they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking.
So that's a cute video of a parent working with their child who couldn't even talk yet, but building that oral language for them and that kind of ping pong of conversation as well. For preschool and older children, we're really trying to expand their sentence length, work on vocabulary, and it's not like you have to teach them vocabulary. It's just talking to them enough where they're being exposed to words and talking through some background knowledge. Take them out and talk about what's happening around you. We did have a video about expanding your child's language for this kind of preschool and kindergarten age, but it even works. I still do it with my middle schoolers. It's called the peer strategy. So if you're interested in that, there's a video on it as well. It's about 4 minutes long, where you can expand your children's sentences to help it match books a little bit better. All right, so we've done read and talk. Next is sing. This one's short, I promise. Sing is a great way to build those phonological awareness skills. This nursery rhymes are part of my post in Raising Readers next month, and then later we'll get to the ABC song as well. So nursery rhymes are great to sing with your children. It's going to work on those phonological awareness skills of rhyme and alliteration. Alliteration can be taught with like tongue twisters as well. Alliteration is when you use words that start the same way, like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. That's alliteration, and it really tunes your child's ears into listening for that beginning sound. So look for the post on nursery rhymes coming next month. The other song that I really wish every parent would teach their child is the ABC song. Because what is the ABC song? It's teaching the letter names, right? So that's going to take at least learning the names off. They still will have to match the name with the correct symbol, right? But at least they'll have the familiarity with the names as well. One caution with this too, I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of students think LMNO is one letter. So if you can maybe just slow down a bit when you get to the LMNO part of the alphabet, that might help them see that those are 4 letters, not one. Again, I'll have a post on letter learning in a few months in our Raising Readers. All right, so singing nursery rhymes and the ABC song, and really any song would work as well with rhyme. All right, play. When we think of playing with our children, I really think of surrounding them with play materials that have the letter shapes in it. So you might be able to get magnetic letters. I've seen them at the dollar store. They don't even have to be magnetic. If you have like an old sign that has letters to it or something like that, you could just use letters for that. They don't have to be meant for play unless you're using it with toddlers. Don't give your toddlers little things, please. Once this student here is using multiple sets of magnetic letters to sort for shape, to learn the letter shapes. But then later you can use these letters to spell words when your child is ready. But alphabet blocks or this puzzle is kind of cool. It's both teaching, you know, ABC order, it's teaching letter shape, and it has a keyword, right, that starts with that beginning sound as well. Again, letters will be a post in a few months. Phonological awareness, you can play around with too, matching the sounds with letters. So you can play games like I Spy. So if you had a picture in a book or just looking around your room, you could say, oh, I spy something that starts with P. And then the child has to find, oh, pumpkin starts with P. So playing I Spy with letters and letter sounds can work. Or we're going on a picnic and you pick a letter sound and think about things you could bring that start with that sound. I'm going on a picnic and I'm bringing stuff that starts with J. And then we're going to bring jump ropes and jelly beans. And that's really going to work on beginning sounds with your children. All right, finally, we're to our writing section, almost done. So writing is going to be another section in our Raising Readers in a few months. Really, we just want to surround our children with bunches of writing materials, paper, notebooks, markers, pens, crayons. You can even create little books by like folding paper in half and stapling if you have a stapler. Other writing things, my kids loved these Magnadoodles. I've seen these at the dollar store as well. Or a little fancier, these boogie boards. It's just important when we're doing writing that it's not on just a tablet with your finger. Having some sort of stylus to help them with that fine motor skill is important. Speaking of fine motor skills, here's where I talk about grip. Pencil grip develops, and it's perfectly normal for your child when they're young to grip a pencil this way. They will move out of it with experience. So with these youngest writers, it's going to be scribbles with a fist grip like this. So really it's more about talking with them about what they're drawing, building that language skills, and just giving them a chance to kind of scribble around. Eventually, you'll see grip start to change. This girl has an overhand grip, and he's a little further along because he has almost a tripod grip. I think he's using 4 fingers there, but eventually their fine motor skills get up to where they're holding the pencil in this. We want them with 3 fingers with a tripod grip. But as you can see, their drawing is getting a little bit more less scribbly as they go along as well. So if your children are at, where this boy is, you could see if they have enough letter knowledge and phonemic awareness knowledge, try to, if that's a picture of dad, see if he can, listen for the sounds in dad, or at least the first sound in dad, and how could we write that? Or if he doesn't know how to do it, you could model how to spell dad, listen for the sounds and spell those with the letters. Other ideas I thought, you could put notebooks into pretend play. So if you have a dress up area at your house, you could have a notebook there for them to use in their pretend play. As you're making your shopping list or writing little notes to somebody, you can model the writing if they're not ready, or as they get older, you can help them have them use their phonological knowledge and their letter writing knowledge to help you write your lists and notes. One of our posts will be on making books. This is an actual book I made with my son Toby when he was real young. So I'll be showing that off in the video, but you can also use just paper stapled together and stickers, and then they can just tell you what they want you to write and you can just write it with them. Or if they're ready to take the pen over, they can do a little bit more of the writing themselves. So I'll share some of this in a future post on raising readers. So we did it. We made it through all 5 tips for how to raise a reader. I hope you see that it's not really that difficult, except for the fact that we're all so busy, right? Especially with COVID, you are kind of tasked with a lot as parents. So just trying to find that time is probably your biggest hurdle in everything, and I understand. And I do worry sometimes that these beautiful pictures show that you think it has to look pretty. So I picked a few other ones that are a little less glamorous to show you that this does not have to be pretty. You could do this work in the car and sing songs with them, listen for beginning sounds, play I Spy, or just talk with them to give them some background knowledge. Or while you're changing diapers, it doesn't have to be pretty. Sing. I used to sing the ABCs to my children as I changed their diapers, or sing Eensy Weensy Spider. This child is creating a mess, but it's a mess of books. That's great. He's learning how to hold books. He's looking at pictures, starting to see the print, getting familiarized with some of those symbols as well. I even see the parent has an alphabet mat. So that's another way that this parent has surrounded this child with letters. Another good tip, we all have to wait in the waiting room. So I always usually grab a book and make my kids, now that they're older, so they're readers, I make them grab a book to read in the waiting room instead of just having them dance around or be on their phones. So try to find those stolen moments when you can work with your children on literacy. So coming soon are a bunch of posts. Every month we'll have new resources and new topics for you. Again, the resources I share will all be on this Families tab.